Hey everyone, welcome back. My name's Dustin Kreis, and today we are going to do a game discussion, and we're going to talk about this game right here, Etrian Odyssey Untold 2, the Fafnir Night, brought to us by Atlas, and this is the second Etrian Odyssey remake on the 3DS. They took the old DS games, put a new coat of paint on them, added a story mode into it, and re-released them on the 3DS, and I have been eating these things up. I played Etrian Odyssey 4, loved it. Played Millennium Girl, loved it. Played this, loved it. Now, I started playing this game last year, and I was really wanting to get it done for the games of 2015 video. But I started playing it, and I don't know if it was because I played so much of Persona Q, which I really didn't care for, and it kind of burnt me out on the whole gameplay style, but I took a break from it. And then that break turned into a very long break. And then finally, I just finished, Trails of Cold Steel, and I was like, man, I kind of want to play another RPG. And I was like, oh yeah, I got this going. So I started it back up, and the great thing about these games is you can leave them for a long period of time and start them back up. So that was really good. But I started it back up, and like a duck to water, I just tore through this game. And had a really, really great time with it. The Etrian Odyssey series, if you guys don't know, they're first-person dungeon crawlers. It's a sort of a subgenre of the JRPG series. Goes back to like wizardry and things like that, and they can be a bit more challenging than your more traditional JRPG. But the Etrian Odyssey Untold series, and to a lesser extent Etrian Odyssey 4, have a lot of great gameplay features that can ease sort of new people into it. So yeah, I really think if you want to get into these games, the Untold games are probably the best ones to get. Get Untold 1, the Millennium Girl, and then Untold 2, the Fafnir Night. Also, Etrian Odyssey 5 is getting ready to come out, so I pretty much finished this game just at the perfect time where I can take a nice big break from the series, and then when Etrian Odyssey 5 comes over here in the States, hit that up really hard and enjoy that as well. But yeah, the storyline is not... Let's just put it this way. Coming off of Trails of Cold Steel and coming into the Fafnir Night, it's a very, very competent JRPG story. It's very good. It's going to keep you interested in the characters, keep the plot moving. In terms of blowing your head back and saying, wow, that was a fantastic story. Not so much in this one, but that doesn't detract from the overall experience. It's just one of those things, especially coming off a game like Trails of Cold Steel, unless I was playing another like insanely amazing JRPG, everything was going to be a little bit disappointing after that. But like I said, the characters are all really likable. The situations you get into with the plot keeps things moving at a relatively brisk pace. This is a 70-hour RPG, so there's going to be moments where you feel slight lulls, but for the most part, I felt like the plot moved at a pretty good pace. But really, the reason why people play these Etrian Odyssey games is for the gameplay, and it's hard to describe the sense of exploration in this game, because the big gameplay thing is on the bottom screen you have to draw your own map of the dungeon, and it's so hard to explain just how satisfying it is to map out the dungeon, and you really get a sense of progress with that that gameplay style. And to me, drawing the map is almost as good as playing the rest of the game. Like, I just really love that part of the gameplay for some reason, and I really feel like I'm going on an adventure when I get to do that. So for me, that is like the biggest awesome thing, is being able to draw your own map of the dungeon, and you really get that sense of exploration. You kind of get it with games that do an auto map feature. Like, I'm playing Bravely Second now, and it kind of auto maps as you move through the dungeons, but there's something about the actual physical drawing it yourself that really kind of draws you into the game more. But like a lot of first-person dungeon crawlers, you have one town that you go back to numerous and just incalculable number of times. One dungeon, although this game has one huge dungeon that you explore, and then sort of a smaller side dungeon that you go to every now and then. And basically you just slowly make your progress through this massive dungeon and go back to town, sell off the spoils you found in there, buy new equipment, buy new items, load up on new quests, and head back in. It's kind of ridiculous how addictive it gets, because you can always just push a little bit further into the dungeon. There's always another item that you need to find in order to craft this more powerful sword. You just get kind of really addicted to it, and luckily there's a lot of things in it to sort of keep you interested. Like I said, you have quests that you get from a bar, and the quests are the best way to gain experience. Otherwise you're just going to be grinding an insane amount of time. But if you do these quests, I mean, you get massive experience bonuses from these. There's several different kinds of items to collect in the dungeon itself. You have materials that you can sell to a shop in order to get more items on the like the weapon and armor lists and things like that. The more stuff you sell to the shop, the better their selection gets. So it's in your interest to go to these special locations in the dungeon where you can either mine, take, or chop items, and collect as many as you can get, as many as your inventory will hold, because you have a limited amount of space. Head back to the town, sell that off, rinse, repeat. That's an easy way to make money. It's an easy way to get new items. It's fantastic. There are also ingredients that you get from these areas and also from enemies. And once this opens up, you'll have a restaurant that you can take these ingredients to and craft dishes, which, you know, most RPGs nowadays have like cooking systems, and I'm never a big one to really explore them. I hardly ever do the cooking stuff in the Tales of series. But for some reason in this, I really, really got into it. I crafted all the dishes I could find. They give you bonuses exploring the dungeon. But the big thing about the restaurant is eventually you get a chance to advertise for the restaurant. And this is like the easiest way to make money. You just go into the certain parts of town, you figure out what those people want, and you know, have a dish that's, you know, for that need. And if it does really well, you're going to be making just a shit ton of money. And if you really focus on that aspect and upgrade the town, I mean, you'll be making just massive amounts of coin by the end of the game. And so much so that, like, even the most expensive weapons and armor, you just don't really care about, because all you gotta do is go explore the dungeon a little bit, wait for the advertising to finish, and then boom, there's your money. What else? The leveling system. I actually really love how Etrian Odyssey does their leveling system. I mean, your characters level up normally like most JRPGs, and then each level you gain, you get a ability point that you can put into just an insane list of skills that these characters can learn. Like, it's daunting a little bit, because you want to try to make... It's a lot like playing Dark Souls in a way, because you want to make a really strong build for each of these characters, but you kind of don't know how to go about it. And you just kind of put points into things that you think sound cool, and then you find out later on the game that those abilities are kind of useless, and you're like, ah, shit. Well, there's an ability, or a way to sort of sacrifice 2 levels, which, who cares, you can gain levels relatively easy in this game, and you can redistribute the points. So don't feel like you're stuck with your selection on these skill abilities. But, you know, each character has a certain, you know, a certain role in the party. There's Chloe, who is your healer. Bertrand, he's your protector. I mean, his shield abilities later on in the game are probably some of the most important abilities. His provoke ability and his ability to buff up his defense. Basically with provoke, he can just say, hey, all enemies attack me, and then if you buff up his defense, he can kind of tank the dungeon for you. But, you know, each one has their own little, you know, part to fill, And as you explore these characters more, you'll sort of see how they all kind of fit together, and then you can build these characters to sort of complement each other and fill in each other's weaknesses. And I really like that about this game. I really thought that was really a great thing. If you feel your characters are lacking a little bit, there's what's called the Grimoire system. Basically, through special events in battle, you gain Grimoires, which are itemized versions of abilities. And you can equip these Grimoires on your character. So let's say you really like an ability that Chloe has, like her War Heal, which the healing in this game, I love it. It gives you a little bit of healing at the beginning of battle and a little bit of healing at the end of battle. So, you know, like most RPGs, you cast a heal spell, your character gets healed, and then they get hit again, and then they're almost dead again. Well, with this, you know, you heal a little bit at the beginning, at the very beginning of the battle, so they have HP to go through the turn, and then at the end they get more HP, so if they get hit, it's not a big deal. I really love that system. But let's say you want that on a different character who doesn't have that ability. You know, through these special events, you can sort of craft Grimoires that will do that ability, and then you can equip them on a different character. Every 10 levels, you get the ability, another slot for a Grimoire, with a total of 5 slots, you know. So you have a limited number of things you can add on to, but, you know, you can also add different skills. But if you want, if you make a Grimoire of the same skill that character has, you can equip that, and it buffs the skill that you already have, so it stacks. So it's kind of a nice push-pull, like, do you want to have a more versatile character, or do you want to have a more powerful character? And I really dug that system and got kind of into it by the end of the game. One thing about the gameplay, it does get rather challenging. As you move towards the end of the game, bosses just become damage sponges. And the great thing about that is you can lower the difficulty, and I played on standard, and I did lower the difficulty for the last 2 bosses, because I mean, I was just getting to the end of the game. You know, I wanted to get it done, so I just lowered the difficulty, and the difference between standard and picnic, which picnic is the perfect name for that difficulty level, is staggering. I was getting thwomped by the next to last boss before I dropped the difficulty level, and then I dropped the difficulty level, and in 4 turns, without getting scratched, I beat the boss. So know in advance that if you lower the difficulty level, you're stuck at the lower difficulty, and it's not going to be as satisfying, because there was something kind of deeply unsatisfying about finishing the game when it was that easy. I kind of wish there was an in-between level between those two, just so I could, you know, still have a little bit of challenge, but be able to actually do something against this boss. So yeah, that's pretty much for the gameplay. Really a gameplay-heavy RPG, and if you like those kind of grindy, gameplay-heavy RPGs, you're really going to love this this game. Graphics-wise, it's a first-person dungeon crawler. This is not going to blow you away. However, the 3D effects are really nice. I do have to say that moving through the dungeon with the 3D on it really adds sort of a more atmospheric sense to the game, which playing on a little handheld screen, it's kind of weird to get that sense of atmosphere. But with the 3D on, you do sort of feel like you are actually in the dungeon. The characters are all represented by sort of the cardboard cutout, you know, character images. And that's basically what you're going to be seeing a lot of, just static images, sort of, and, you know, text bars, which, you know, back in the day, in the Super Nintendo days and things like that, or even the PlayStation 1 era, I mean, that was fine. You know, nowadays, for a lot of kids that are used to, like, big, extravagant PS4 games, it can seem a little archaic, but that's kind of the point with first-person dungeon crawlers. They kind of keep that old school aesthetic, especially with games like The Dark Spire, which I need to get back to. I really want to now, but I need to. First-person dungeon crawlers are weird for me. Like, I really love them, but I have to let some time go in between them, or I get burned out, which is what happened to this one. But you know, they do keep that very old school mentality, and but there's enough new school stuff here that it's a nice blend, I guess. But graphically, the game looks really good. It's just not going to blow you away because it's a 3DS first-person dungeon crawler. Audio-wise, the music is very tranquil. which works for the game itself, but it's not going to be a game that you're like, oh my god, I need to have the CD soundtrack now. But while you're playing it, you are going to enjoy the music. But it is very tranquil, and that's kind of been the thing with all the Etrian Odyssey games. It's a very tranquil soundtrack. The voice work is good for what there is. Every now and then, characters, usually they'll say like the first sentence, or like the first, you know, part of a sentence of every dialogue box. Sometimes, you know, whenever they're talking, they'll just go, yeah, or okay, and, you know, they'll just do that sort of ad nauseum, and that gets a little annoying, but for the most part, when I was playing this, I had the volume turned down, and I was listening to music on my phone. So, it didn't really bug me too much, but, you know, people don't come into these games for amazing graphics and amazing audio. It's more for the gameplay and the exploration, and if you're into that kind of stuff for RPGs, you'll definitely love this one. It really makes me feel like back in the day playing Dungeons and Dragons and exploring, you know, labyrinths and fighting monsters, and I really like the first-person dungeon crawler genre for that. So anyway, guys, Etrian Odyssey Untold 2: The Fafnir Night. Really had a great time with this one. I don't know where it'll fit on the list quite yet. Definitely won't be taking the top spot, but it's a good, solid, middle title for what I've played this year. And that sounds like a diss or something like that. But I had a really amazing time with this. I am looking so forward to Etrian Odyssey 5 when it comes out. This is easily one of my favorite modern series out there, and if you haven't given it a shot, definitely give it a try. You might find something that you really, really dig. So anyway, guys, that is it for Etrian Odyssey Untold 2: The Fafnir Night. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.